This next slot is our power ranking slot, which has become known as Two Pricks, One List.
DOLLOCKS.
Go with fancy dance. Get the simple things wrong. A nice team. There's only one answer for that.
Where did this ferocious determination out there today come from?
The media. Every one of them wrote us off.
The article was rubbish.
You know, it's not my fault. Just haven't been playing a big game in Crook Park.
I've been a loser all my life. Today, holding standby.
It is time for the power ranking with Eoin Sheahan power ranking. How did that happen? You're a clown. Oh, that's harsh. Too harsh. I apologise. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Time has proven to be my friend when it comes to these power rankings over the last couple of years. We are back, by the way. We are back with the most perfect, the most flawless GAA Power Rankings that have ever existed. But I don't think the people at home need to be introduced to what they are, really. They've spoken for themselves over the last few years.
You've got the All-Ireland winner right a couple of years in a row. I mean, that's a high-end stuff. But after that, I think there's been plenty that you've got wrong, Eoin. So what's your format? Explain to people who have not seen the power rankings, who are power ranking virgins.
The power rankings is a list of the best Gaelic football teams in Ireland. That's it. The best teams. Whichever team is better than the other one goes in front of the other one. And we go from 32 right away down to 1. And we eventually arrive at the team who is number 1 in the country. And who knows who that team might be on this, our very first power rankings of 2021.
OK, do we go through the whole thing?
Yeah, let's go through the first 8 teams anyway, which we might not spend all that much time on. At number 32, and they've been at number 32 for a while now, is London, because they haven't been playing games. At number 31 is Waterford. At number 30 is Wexford. At number 29 is Leitrim. Sligo coming in at number 28. Then Louth, Mickey Hart's Louth, in at number 27. Carlow in at 26 after a good start to 2021 for them. And at number 25 is Wicklow. They showed green shoots last year. They got a championship win. They got promoted from Division 1 or from Division 4, but have had a poor start to life in Division 3 this year. So those are the first 8 teams. That brings you up to number 25. We can bring you on to the next bunch of counties then. Longford in at number 24. We've got Antrim in at number 23. Westmeath coming up at number 22, and then Fermanagh at 21. Down are 20th. Laois are in at 19th after a poor start to 2021 by them as well. And then Limerick in at 18th. One of the big risers, I'd imagine, over the course of the winter. I haven't checked the last power rankings from last year, but I suspect Limerick would have been one of the big risers. They're in at number 18. As would Offaly. Offaly have 3 wins from 3 in Division 3 South so far this year, and they're in at number 17 this year. They also got a championship win last year, so it's not coming from nowhere, this form from Offaly. So they're the 2 big winners so far, I think it's fair to say, in the championship, or in the league campaign, Limerick and Offaly, and of course their form has been represented in these power rankings. OK, let's keep going. We'll get to the end and we'll come to the start, will we? Yeah, let's do it. No, let's do it. And then we can go backwards, because there may be a few controversial things, and there will be a member of our team who complains about this next bunch of teams, no doubt. But sure, look, let's just go through them anyway. Number 16 is Tipperary. They've had a bit of a mixed start this year after winning Munster last year. At number 15, another one of the risers, the team to watch in 2021 so far, it is Derry. It is Rory Gallagher's Derry. They are 3 from 3 in Division 3 North, and they are winning by pretty big margins, to say the least. Cavan, last year's Ulster winners, are in at 14th. They have struggled, like Tipperary, to match that form into early 2021, but who knows what the summer has in store for them.
Do you know where Cavan finished last year? Do you have any idea?
In the power rankings?
Yeah.
I think they were like 4th before the thing ended.
Okay. Because they were still going.
Yeah, our last power rankings was before the semi-finals, I think.
Right.
So we didn't do anything after they got hammered by Dublin, and Tipperary getting hammered by Mayo. Okay,
well look, why don't we stop here? Tommy Rooney, good afternoon to you. Good morning to you.
Hi chaps.
Roscommon 9, Cork 10, Meath 11, Clare 12, Kildare 13, Cavan 14, Derry 15, Tip 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's like, can you go through the reasons why, Eoin, again? How do you define it? Like, what's the science?
If one team is better than the other.
There's nothing to do with you know, where they stand in the league, how they get on the championship. What to do with though?
It's all those factors come into play together. If good performances, if you show that you're a good team and they are exemplified in your league standings and they're exemplified in your championship standings, then yes, away we go. But as we know, you cannot compare like for like two teams' form lines. It's just an impossibility, whether it comes from the geographical nature of GAA, which, let's not forget, has been hammered home this year in the National League. Now more than ever, the power rankings have gained added importance. So give me your exact gripe here, Tommy.
Kildare beat Cork. Pretty easy.
You know, like what are Cork? The reason Cork are above Meath is, I'm not just saying it because of Meath, but the reason Cork are where they are is because they bet Kerry.
Last year in the championship match, it's true. Do you know what? I think that the ghost of last year's championship haunts us. I wouldn't be terribly surprised. We haven't seen it yet. We're not going to go just yet. But I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Eoin had Kerry 8th in these rankings on the basis of what we're seeing here so far. I would be.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I am too.
Wait, hold on a minute. So what's your argument for putting Meath ahead of Cork then, Tommy?
Okay, my argument isn't necessarily to put Meath ahead of Cork. I would argue that Meath are marginally better than where they are. My argument is that Cork are too high in terms of you like to have Cork up there because it suits Kerry to have Cork up to where they are. What I don't understand is how you could have somebody like Cavan 4th last year and 14th now this year.
Well, they've been pretty grim. I support this. Cavan overrated on the basis of a couple of big games last year.
Tommy,
what have you done for too reactive. How did they get into 4th then last year?
That was completely reactive, Tommy. We said that at the end of last year. That was like we have to bow down to the ridiculous nature of what that championship was last year. Let's give them their moment in the sun. And I mean, they may not have an All-Ireland medal, but they certainly have a top 5 power ranking slot from last year. So
what have Cork done to get into number 10th?
I support the position of Cavan. Cork are far too high. Meath are Division 1 team, and even the worst Division 1 team, well, we'll see.
We'll see. It's just...
You see, this is where we get into very interesting territory. Like, it is a very tough one. I'm not going to lie, I did have Meath above Cork for a couple of minutes earlier. That may have been changed by the fact that I knew you were coming. No, I'm only joking. I was changed by the fact that I looked deeper into the evidence and I realised that Cork just edge Meath at the moment. The Kerry result is not irrelevant in this conversation, just like it isn't the be-all and end-all. Cavan winning Ulster last year is not irrelevant, just like it isn't the be-all and end-all. Some of these results are flukier than others.
I meant in my head, obviously, by the way, with Meath, and not to taunt Tommy any further, but go on.
So, some of these results are flukier than others. Some of them indicate a proper uptick in form. I believed that the Cork semi-final last year indicated an uptick in form, and that's why I had them inside the top 5 or 6 last year, and then they lost the Munster final, which proved that they aren't in the top page of our power rankings here, hence why they're not even in the top 8. So, Tommy, I could have gone a lot bigger with Cork this year. I think any team that...
How? What did they do to justify going bigger on?
Tommy...
They lost the Munster final last year.
Tommy, hold on.
Kerry bottled it in the Munster semi-final. Clifford was taking shots from ridiculous angles. David Moran dropped too short into the keeper's hands in extra time. Mark Keane nudges Tommy Welsh and scores a last-minute goal. And you have them in 10th position.
Tommy, they were pushing for promotion to Division 1. Is that not enough justification to have a team in and around 10th spot, no?
Are they in the Division 2 semi-finals?
If they were playing in Meath's position, they're
in a relegation playoff. They're closer to Division 3 than they are to Division.
If they were in Meath's position, they'd be going in a promotion playoff. It's as simple as that. Meath have absolutely fluked out by being in the division that they are. Meath are the luckiest.
That's not necessarily true.
Meath are the luckiest county to have got the draw that they got. Mayo being the only difficult team they got. If Meath were in with Clare and with Kildare, chances are they'd be sitting in the exact same position as Cork. We know that the way that the leagues have been divvied up has been completely unfair on some teams. Cork are not a relegation candidate from Division 2. And if they are, maybe they're the 15, 16th best team in the country. Is that what you're saying?
I'd have Cork around 13, 14, yeah. And what I would do was I would give Cavan's provincial championship success a bit more weight if you're going on last year's championship rather than Cork's fluke in the semi-final against Kerry. I would just give a bit more weight to Cavan's success. That's what I would do. Yes, Cavan haven't been great this year. I do not think Cavan are contenders. I think that you're right to have Derry up in 15th. I'm not sure where you had them last year. They're in good form. But like if Cavan had pulled out a win against Derry at the weekend, Cavan could have been in with a shout going back to Division 2.
Yeah.
It's a very quick season, lads.
I haven't been paying enough attention.
There's 4 spots. Sorry, Joe, but there's 4 spots between them, Tommy. We're not talking like this massive gap.
They're in a tier, essentially.
Yeah, like 100%. That's exactly it.
So Cork.
But you're acting your own.
Cork to Derry is a tier. Are Derry in that tier, or are Derry a little bit behind them?
I would say that tier starts at Derry. I would say Tipperary at 16th is where the tier below that ends, and then you take a step up to Derry. I believe. I believe that there is a hard case to be made. A Tip are in a better place than Derry at this moment, despite winning Munster last year. Yeah, so yes, I think you take a step up once you get to Derry, Cavan, Kildare, Clare, Meath, and Cork, and they're at a I would not be surprised if people had Cork at 15th or had Derry at 10th. Well, Derry at 10th is a bit of a stretch. But though they are tight calls, Tommy, you have to say, and you have to say that Cork at 10th is not a reach for them. Like, I accept that you can look back at last year and say Cork were top 5. I think I put them in at one point. That's fair enough. I'll accept that. You know, we all get carried away. This is an emotional thing, even though it's the most correct and flawless power rankings of all time. But I think 10 for Cork, actually, they won't get promoted, but I think in 2 weeks' time, say, for example, if Meath beat Kildare, do we then look back and say, oh, Kildare are still definitely a better team than Cork, even though, you know, they beat them a couple of weeks ago? Or how do these things actually fall once we see a bit of championship football, once we see these teams at the end of the season? I just think that there is an argument to be made here that you can put a lot of teams in front of the other, and I think Cork have the best squad, they have the best team, and I think if it's I think time will be kind to this pick of Cork being a top 10 team.
Cork finished bottom of their group in the 2019 All-Ireland Championship in the Super 8s. They had a win against Limerick. They got hockeyed by Kerry, hockeyed by Dublin.
In 2019?
Beaten by Tyrone. Yeah. Like, if you're talking about form, that was the last real championship we had.
So you're just taking away their win against Kerry last year?
Well, it was a bit of a...
Well, I'm not... We're saying the win against Kerry was a red herring.
You can't.
It was a red herring.
You can't. Hold on a minute. Like, there's a lot of people out there who've given out about some of the stuff that I've said about Cork. Cork people at home must be up in arms about what Tommy Rooney just said there. He said the last meaningful championship evidence he has to use is 2019. He is completely writing off what you did against Kerry last year.
Oh,
can you believe your eyes, Cork?
Well, I am. Sorry. Look what happened in the Munster final.
Munster final completely eradicated. Semi-final.
Don't get me wrong. I'm accepting that. If they'd won that Munster final last year, they might even be in a higher position.
Yes, they would.
10th is not a good reflection of where Cork could be at. I think they've got a playing group that is inside the top 8. I think it's a Division 1 playing group, and I think they'll prove that over the next few years.
We'll see. I think, look, we should. I hope there's going to be some more stuff to talk about, but I think that Cork should be behind at the moment. Kildare,
before we go
and
further,
Meath and Clare. Really, I know they beat Clare at the weekend, but like. That was partly to do with Clare miscalculating on the field, it seems like.
Just before we go any further.
Yeah.
People care about these power rankings.
I care deeply about it. It's the most important thing in my life, Tommy. It's all I've got.
If you look back at the YouTube comments last year and last October, you took a lot of abuse from Cavan people.
I love Cavan people.
They were very unhappy with where you had them, and suddenly they appeared in 4th position after winning the Ulster.
Like they beat Donegal, who we thought were going to beat Dublin.
I am just wondering whether your own Kerry brethren have been very upset with where you've had Cork in recent years, and it just suits the narrative to have Cork that little bit higher. And that's all I'm saying. I think Cork should be a powerhouse in Gaelic football. It'll be an amazing day when they're back at it, but they are not there yet.
Like, Tommy, in fairness, if you want to get into comparing what teams did in 2019, like, you don't have to look too far for an opponent that Cork came up against in 2019 and actually gave a rattle. I'm talking about Dublin here. You go through all those teams in 10 to 16 that have come up against Dublin down through the years. There isn't many of them, but Meath are one of them. Kildare are another one of those counties that have failed miserably to lay a glove on Dublin. Cork got one chance at them a couple of years ago and actually caused them a bit of trouble. Like, again, we're not talking about any world beaters here. We're talking about a team in 10th. And, like, yes, there will be people who say Meath are ahead of Cork, and yes, I flirted with that idea myself. It is close, Tommy, but and I knew this was going to be the thing that would really upset you this week. But I just think, in my heart of hearts, you look at the strength of the South Division, the strength of the North Division in Division 2 this year, the fact that it is the first few games of the year, we've only got 3 regulation games to go on. We can't just make our decision based on the standings and the win-loss ratio. There's a little bit more to it. And to my eye, Cork are just about, it's a close one, but just about a better team than Meath.
And what about Limerick? 18th. What are they doing to be ahead of Antrim?
Yeah, I thought this was going to...
Do you know, like, this is the Munster... This is the Munster, skewing Munster again.
What do you mean? What are they doing? I thought you meant they're too far down. Limerick have been brilliant this year.
So tell us what...
They've been very good, Owen. Like, Billy Lee's done an amazing job.
Limerick, since the start of 2020, I thought that everybody knew this. It's great that I get an opportunity to talk about what Limerick are doing. Top in Division 4 last year. People are like, OK, Division 4, who cares? Go into the Championship. They should have beaten Tipperary in the Championship last year. We'll remember Conor Sweeney's incredible point off the sideline to knock Limerick out of the Munster Championship. That could have been Limerick in that Munster final. Instead it was Tip, and they won the Munster final. This year then, they beat Tip in the league. Now, in fairness, they lost to Offaly, but a good Offaly side who just about pipped them in this power rankings. And they beat Wicklow by 10 points. Limerick are trending in the right direction, and I think being inside the top 20 is where they deserve to be.
Who have they got in the first round of Munster? They got Cork? No.
I only worry about the present and what we've already seen. It's Kerry Clare on one side, so they'd be on the other side.
Okay. You can settle your petty disputes about the position of Meath and Cork either on TikTok or you can do it on air next week. So this is the final sheet from 8 to 1. Where are we going?
Yeah, number 9 is Roscommon, by the way. They've got left out. Number 8 is Monaghan. Number 7 are your boys Armagh, Tommy. Number 6 are Galway. And this is why we didn't do a power rankings too early. We let the dust settle a little bit to see where a team like Galway actually really are. I'm putting them at 6. Number 5 is Tyrone. Number 4 is Donegal. Number 3 is last year's All-Ireland runners-ups. Runner-ups. Mayo at number 3.
Runners-up.
Number 2 is Kerry. And number 1 is Dublin. I don't think Dublin have ever not been at number 1 of these power rankings. Even though I think you made a case last year, Ger, that Kerry should have been there, and the year before you made a case that Mayo should have knocked them off top spot. We've avoided. We stayed stubborn on Dublin and.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Monaghan 8, Armagh 7, Galway 6, Tyrone 5, Donegal 4, Mayo 3, Kerry 2, Dublin 1. So Mayo are in Division 2 and they're having the crack, getting the winning mentality back, blooding some youngsters. Andy Moran seemed pretty positive about the performance when he was talking with Tommy after that on Sunday. Are you sure they're really 3 at the moment? And we can pick holes in a lot of these at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure is the completely honest answer with you. I think I'll be hands up here and say Mayo have been insulated from being moved too far down this power rankings because they are playing in Division 2. What I will say is they ended last year at number 2 in the power rankings, so that is a bit of movement here. They have been pushed down one, and I now make Kerry a better contender for the All-Ireland than Mayo as a result of them playing Division 2 football. But you can't punish a team too much for playing in Division 2. And Tommy, as you've seen, playing good football in Division 2.
Yeah, I think this is very fair, Owen. It's very hard to get a read on where Mayo are at. They obviously had that brilliant win against Down. As you said, Ger, they're blooding some young lads. I was very impressed with the difference that both teams made 10 changes yesterday going into the game. So it's very hard to get a read on where Mayo and Meath are at after that match. I think at half-time, Meath brought on Donald Keoghan, Pádraig Carnan and Shane McEntee. And for the first time in the match, they could compete physically with the Mayo lads.
The Meath substitutions at half-time. We're doing the power rankings, we're talking about Mayo, and we're still talking about the bloody Meath substitutions at half-time in what is ultimately going to be a meaningless league game. Go on, Tommy, go on.
As Andy Moran said, James Horn would have wanted Owen O'Donoghue to go up against Jordan Morris, a fella who's in red-hot form, another Meath player playing well. So,
the official Meath power rankings brought to you by Tommy Rooney, Meath Hill. Go on.
I would say I was very impressed with Mayo yesterday. They were clinical. Killian O'Connor looks like he's in really good form. They've added another couple of young forwards. Ryan O'Donoghue's looking good. James Carr scored 2 goals. He was lethal in the second quarter. And they're big. They're athletic. Ruan and O'Connor are a lovely partnership in midfield. And they've got some of the best backs in the country, in Oisin Mullen and Paddy Durkin. It's just very hard, as Owen said, to get a proper read on where they're at so far because they're playing Division 2 football.
I think that's fair.
And the quality of the games aren't that great.
Do you not need to dunt them down for this season's power rankings? Look, my main bone of contention here is Galway at 6. Galway are not the 6th best team in the country at the moment, are they?
There's a lot of cases to be made when you look at these for moving teams down. This goes for Mayo, this goes for Galway. But I would say who's actually making the play, and this goes to both of you, to actually be the 3rd best team in the country, first of all, and then who's making...
3rd best, I don't know. Sorry, but certainly ahead of Galway. I'd have Monaghan ahead of Galway.
Would you?
Yeah. Just think that
Monaghan
are playing against good teams and are in close games and are doing weird stuff. And so Therefore, I have some confidence that they're going to put in a championship performance. Now, the difficulty is, right, Galway could win 2 games and be in an All-Ireland semi-final, and suddenly your most correct, never wrong power rankings will have them at 4th, and we'll all be knowing that that's not true, because half the country's best teams will be out after the first round of the Ulster Football Championship.
I think that's a little harsh. I think if Galway make an All-Ireland semi-final, they'll have beaten Roscommon, they'll have beaten Mayo. So I think they'll absolutely deserve to be a top 5 team after doing that in a knockout championship. It's not the hardest path you can get, but it's harder than what Kerry are going to have to come up against or what Dublin are going to have to come up against if you're judging it just on Division 1 teams. So I think Galway, if they get there, will absolutely be worth their weight in the top 4. But like, we need to forget that they have a win on the board here. They've beaten Roscommon, they've beaten another Division 1 team. I know, like, Dublin probably couldn't care less about the Galway game, but the players care about it. They care about getting their spot in that Dublin team. That narrow defeat means something to me. Now, the 22-point defeat to Kerry is the interesting one. Like, is that what you're using, Ger, to say they should not be in this top 6 conversation? Is it as simple as that, really? Because I kind of wrote that off a little bit.
It's not just that. It was the one last year. I mean, maybe you know, you write both of them off because it's essentially a final challenge match for them, and they seem to be treating it that way. The game against Mayo last year in the league after the lockdown period. So I don't know. And look, they were getting a lot of praise for the amount of defenders and bodies they had back who were actually doing some defensive work as opposed to shooing the players through for scores.
Like Galway haven't won a Connacht Championship since 2018, lads. What Division 1 team gets beaten by 21 points, 22 points? Like, was Westmeath the last team to get beaten by that much about 6-7 years ago? Even Meath weren't getting beaten by that much in the league when they were losing their games in Division 1. Not to go back to Meath again. I think you're right with Mayo. Genuinely. I think you're right with Mayo. I think they're 3rd. I think the conversation is 4th and 5th. Like, who are you backing? Are you backing Donegal? Are you believing in Donegal? Like, Donegal looks so weak sometimes if they're missing one player.
What is the injury situation with Michael Murphy's hamstring? Is to be honest, because he's missing these games, does that mean, so say he plays and he's fit to play, but he hasn't had this period to get up to full cruise control? Like, we all know hamstrings are a real pain for players to recover from because they linger, and there's a confidence issue then about going full out. And I don't know. I would say that takes Donegal out of the top 4 for me, and I think that the possibilities for Tyrone would push them up. And I think that Tyrone against Monaghan against Donegal, those matches that are happening at the moment where they're battering each other are really good testing ground. Like, in this season of all seasons, where you're going to get belched into a championship and that championship is going to be over in the blink of an eye, that getting battle hardened is the most important thing that can happen. And that's why I would give those Ulster teams, I would actually have Dublin, Kerry, and then the Ulster teams, and then Mayo, just on the basis of the Division 2 preparation not being good enough. Like, when Andy Moran was talking about you know, the extra time in the ball, I found towards the end of my career I was getting blocked down. It's the speed of thought that the Division 1 teams have that separates them from the rest of them, and it's hard for teams from Division 2 to get up to that speed in Championship.
Yeah,
it's very difficult.
Yeah, no, like, that's true. And I think when you kind of look through these, I'm not sure you go along with this, Tommy, but I think maybe this is looking at the league table a little bit too much, but I think you can make a little bit of a separation between Donegal and Tyrone and Armagh and Monaghan at this point. There's a hierarchy in Ulster, it seems, that those two are definitely the best two. But at the same time, there's just, I don't know, were they just one win away from kicking Mayo out of 3rd? I'm not sure what would have happened, but it just felt that they were both Donegal and Tyrone, that is, just missing something. As I say, maybe one more win and they were into 3rd position and Mayo are knocked down a rung. Maybe just a lack of perfection throughout these games a little bit. Like, Kerry and Dublin here are 2 wins and a draw, and maybe they're helped by being in the south. I've used that argument for Division 2, so I may as well stick by the same logic for Division 1 here. They were in a much tougher place, Tyrone and Donegal, than Kerry and Dublin were. So maybe they do deserve that reward and be above Mayo. But if I really had to bet on one team, whether it's Mayo, Tyrone or Donegal, to give Dublin a closer run to their money than anybody else, it would be Mayo out of those 3. And that's why they're clinging on to 3rd spot. At
the moment, though, and I'm with you on that. With Donegal, I'm struggling to put Tyrone, even though I like Tyrone, I like what's happening up there. I think if McShane's back, there's an added X factor there for Tyrone. And
is he going to be
I'm
back?
Not sure
what do we know? What do we think? What's the latest?
I don't know, actually. I don't know if he's going to be back yet. I've tried to check it out a few times and I haven't got definitive word of when he's back. But like Dooher and Logan are just in. Bonner's been up in Donegal. He's had Rochford with him for the last 3-4 years. They let us down last year. They played Paddy McBurty when he was undercooked. I was asking the question, were they playing him with an eye on Dublin in that game against Cavan to try and get minutes into them? They were missing a couple of defenders, Steve McMiniman and Owen Bon Gallagher. Kieran Thompson was missing against Cavan, and they really missed out on him that day. I think losing Michael Murphy has allowed the likes of Michael Langan to really stand up. We've seen how good Paddy McBurty looks. I would currently have Donegal in 4th position. And if they had delivered a bit more last year, they'd be ahead of Mayo. For me, there's not that much between them. I think Mayo I was surprised actually by how strong Mayo's depth was so far when they've lost Donny Vaughan, David Clark, Parsons, like you name it. There's about 6 or 7 lads there in that Mayo dressing room, real leaders that have been lost.
Higgins,
But like Aidan O'Shea looked great when he came on yesterday, first game back. He's big. I heard a couple of the Meath lads saying afterwards that they felt the hits that they took off O'Shea. So like you're talking about size and power. Mayo have it, Donegal have it, but I just think Andy Moran has made the point a few times that you can't play all your beautiful players. Sometimes it has to be horses for courses. And Donegal try and play too many attacking players sometimes. That from 2 to 6. He wouldn't necessarily back them in a battle against Kerry, the Kerry forwards or Dublin forwards. So for me at the minute, I'd lean the way you're going on. I would ask you, if Roscommon had beaten Galway, would you have Roscommon in 6th place and Galway in 9th? Is it that close? Is it that final line in the power rankings?
Probably is. The only thing is Galway had, 6 points to spare over Roscommon in that game. I do think there is a gap between those two teams. I don't know, to be honest. I definitely think that there was going to be a case where it was Armagh versus Galway. I think that is a very tight call at the moment, and I think I actually did have Armagh in 6th earlier on, and then I was like, nah, let's go with Galway. Galway, and maybe there's a bit of historical reference here, like thinking about pre-pandemic times, thinking about how good they were pre-pandemic. Maybe that's just a ridiculous thing to even consider. Maybe it's ridiculous to consider the game against Mayo in the Championship last year. But what I will say is this. The game against Mayo in the Championship last year gave us a reason to ignore the 22-point hammering against Kerry, because we saw last year how well they came back from a disastrous result.
I can buy that. I can definitely buy that.
That's true.
So there's one tier where it's Dublin and Kerry, and then there's a second tier where it's Mayo, Donegal, Tyrone, and then there's another tier, Galway, Armagh, Monaghan, Roscommon. Is that right?
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I would say Roscommon and Monaghan maybe holding on to that tier with their fingertips.
Are Monaghan's attacking players not so talented, and have they not discovered a bunch of new? And is there not something? I'm constantly amazed at how well Monaghan can manufacture players.
They're such a small pick, and they have brought through a lot of young lads this year. There's Mulligan, and there's a couple of other young lads. I can't remember the corner forward's name. There's Andrew Woods. I don't think they're ready yet. Conor McCarthy, McManus, Stephen O'Hanlon's back and he's flying are obviously there. I just think that Monaghan probably peaked 18 months ago. Probably. And I'm not sure those young lads have come true enough yet.
Yeah, okay, but I don't think they're as far behind, and I don't think they're behind Armagh. Really, I know Armagh are very trendy.
I love Armagh.
That's the thing. It's like, I think you might have had some influence.
Such
here.
Good footballers. Oh, come on, lads. Owen's been saying the same as me for a long time now.
We did overrate
the style of play.
Big time.
Do you think we overrate them?
No, last year we did, and I just hope the same thing doesn't happen this year.
I think it feels like we're in year one of a new three-year plan for this Armagh team. And unfortunately, knockout football championships do not traditionally work very well for Geezer. So maybe this year's different again with the speed at which it happens. So how close?
Where Kildare?
What?
Where are Kildare? Sorry, I missed that earlier on. We never even mentioned it.
They are 13th. Okay. Unlucky for some.
In that mishmash. So this, like Kildare, it will obviously, that'll be reevaluated if they end up getting promoted. But my point here is that it's almost the Cork Kildare comparison is almost a more aggravating one than Cork Meath. Like, I'm not sure, is there like also a collection of Kildare people like the Meath Hill crew who watch these power rankings and are so vociferous on social media, but they should be more fuming than Meath with these power rankings by
they
right.
Just literally beat Cork pretty handily.
Yeah, and they've got into this promotion playoff. But the reason why I didn't give them that ticket over Cork just yet is that if they lose that game, if Meath end up beating them, then all of a sudden you're looking at Kildare and Cork both back in Division 2 next year. And who am I backing to get promoted to Division 1 next year? I'm backing Cork. I'm backing Cork over that Kildare team. And lads, you're saying that this is some sort of, Kerry want Cork in 10th. I don't think it's that. There may be a bias on my part, but it might actually just be from watching Cork more than a lot of these teams. I'll hold my hands up and say that. I've watched a lot of Cork over the last few years, and this is a bloody good team of footballers. They're coming off an unbelievably high base at under 20 level, as we know, over the last few years. And I think that history will be kind to that number 10 pick.
Okay, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
So Dublin, Kerry, Mayo, Donegal, Tyrone, Galway, Armagh and Monaghan are the top 8. If you want to have your say, you can get us 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Or, of course, you can leave a comment on the YouTube channel. Be kind. Hashtag be kind. Poor Owen. He looks like he has broad shoulders, but actually...
No. Owen, seriously, look, it's tough. It's a tough job trying to pick the power rankings. I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. I just think the whole Cork thing kind of skews it somewhat. I think you got pretty spot on outside of that. I'm not even arguing about Meath that much. I just don't think Cork should be 10th.
I expected Kerry to be number 3 or 4. Honestly, I'm proud of you, Owen.
I couldn't get away with that.
You couldn't get away with
that. This is the first time that you've really stood up as a man and been counted.
I would have tried it.
I know the Kerry Mafia are buzzing. I can hear your phone, even though it's on silent. It's beginning to melt in your pocket with the opprobrium and the outrage about the fact that you've given Kerry the respect they deserve. So fair play to you. It's difficult going against your own people, but a prophet in his own land.
It is.
That's all I'll say on that.
It's great. It's great to have it back. It's great to have it back, lads.
It is.
Could you imagine? Kildare are not a Division 1 team. They just aren't a Division 1 team yet. So Meath are going to have to. Meath are going to have to back this up.
This item up, will you?
Meath are going to have to back this up.
Tommy, we've got to get on to our next item.
Well, you're wrapping the show now, Ger. That's it. We're done for this morning.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much, Tommy.
The curtain has been firmly pulled back.
Do stay tuned, because there will be something very good for you coming up immediately after the break. One of the highlights from last night's show. Stay tuned. This next slot is our power ranking slot, which has become known as Two Pricks, One List.
DONLOCKS.
Galway fancy dance. Get the simple things wrong. A nice team. With only one answer for that.
Where did this ferocious determination out there today come from?
The media, every one of them wrote us off.
The article was rubbish.
You know, it's not my fault. Just haven't been Kerry in a big game in Croke Park.
I've been a loser all my life. Today, hold stand by.
It is time for the power ranking with Eoin Sheahan. Eoin Sheahan power ranking. How did that happen? You're a clown.